come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Father, deliver us from the evil one.
Welcome to Patriot Radio.
Good afternoon, fellow patriots. This is Matt Shea. And today on Patriot Radio, civil war begins in Syria. It looks like Europe is trying to drag the United States into World War III. And churches, beware as we are in Ramadan and head into the Easter season. I will have a very specific report that is corroborated and very detailed about a threat to churches in the United States in very specific states. Stay tuned for that. Also, our guest today is Selwyn Duke to talk about everything that's going on out there, the morality of it all, and what happens with the U.S., Ukraine, and Russia. Here at Patriot Radio, we want to bring you the information that nobody else is talking about and the information that you need to be prepared for the times that are ahead and the times that are upon us, but no fear. We were made for this. So follow us on patriotradio.us/Telegram for breaking news and real-time intelligence analysis. If you missed the last show, please go back and watch it. I gave a very clear analysis, detailed analysis of Ukraine and some of the solutions that should be coming out there. We really have to grasp the fact that we are living a decade every 3 days. It's crazy. But the thing that takes us through these times and the turbulence is being Americans, steady, always standing strong and not giving an inch to the forces of evil. Which brings us to our wisdom from the word for today. 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8. Be sober of spirit, be on the alert. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour, so resist him. Firm in your faith, knowing that the same experiences of suffering are being accomplished by your brothers and sisters who are in the world. Then it says this, after you have suffered for a little while, the God of all grace, who called you to his eternal glory in Christ, will himself perfect, confirm, strengthen, and establish you. So yes, there may be some turbulent times ahead, but we need to stand. When we stand, God will establish us in the land. So that brings us to a couple of things. First, if you need prayer, especially about what I'm about to talk about, or you want to be involved in praying for the things that I'm about to talk about, contact us at patriotradio.us/prayer. We would love to walk with you through whatever you're going through, but also let's go on the offensive. Instead of being on the defensive, let's go on the offensive, and let's start praying about some of the things that are coming against the church. In France, today, somebody shouting Allah Akbar, something about that, threatened to kill several faithful who gathered there to pray and went into a church in France. Well, that's what's happening in Europe, and a lot of people have kept that in Europe. Here is what's happening here in the United States. We can pull this up right now. First of all, I've seen several reports locally about churches undergoing surveillance, people dressed in black bloc, people that have tried to test the security doors, people who've tried to film inside the church. Also, there was the mentally ill person who went into a Catholic church recently as well. But there was an incident that you may not be aware of where somebody tried to film at a youth event and then ran out when they were confronted. So all of these things together, multiple incidents of people dressed in black bloc, apparently downtown surveilling churches, isn't just in Spokane, Washington, but it's happening across the country. And then a source that I have overseas contacted me with the following, and I want to go ahead and just read this very quickly, that there is a credible threat ramping up into the Easter time frame. We're already in Ramadan. And these reports of non-church members doing surveillance is really pre-attack surveillance. They're not just taking photos, but they're taking notes down of security, layouts, times of services as well, counting numbers that attend services. And there has been an alert that has been put out privately to churches specifically in these states, in California, Florida, Virginia, Washington, Illinois, Texas, Arizona, and West Virginia. Part of why I'm bringing this up is that Tennessee and Connecticut were just added to the list, also Wisconsin and New York. So if we can bring that article back up, there is a huge list that was put together here by American Kinetics Actual. So AX Actual put this up. If we can scroll up to the top, put this up detailing the different incidents that have occurred. And my source not only corroborated this, but added the details that this was coming in the Easter season, that there was a special focus as Christians gather here leading up into the Easter season during Lent and the 40 days prior to Easter. And also, we like to call it Resurrection Day, and also during Ramadan. These two things are coinciding. And I want to just read this rest. That these attacks that are predicted for the United States of America may be linked because the Islamic Army / Caliphate wants to take over and destroy the West, non-Muslims. So Christians, etc., which are big in faith in America, are a prime target. For every church security team out there, there's no fear here, but I would take this alert very, very seriously. As you can see, the detailed different events. Also, what is not in here is the threat analysis and the very likelihood, based on rhetoric of the left, the rhetoric of the Marxists and communists, and some of the things they've already said previous to this, that they would be targeting leaders and property, patriots and Christians across the board. Now, just the last episode, we talked about an incident in Portland where the CEO of a company had his house attacked. So this is real. This is here. And it is going to take all of us to stand against this threat from the communists and the jihadis in this moment as they try to make chaos reign. And not to be outdone, the globalists are also doing that. And I'm going to get to that here under the national front. So tell your church security team, if you are listening to Patriot Radio, this is an alert for everybody to heighten their awareness, strengthen their security plans, and that churches are in fact a target in the United States, as well as patriot property and patriot leaders and Christian leaders. So pastors, it's not just you at the church, but you at your house, you going to your house. Take a look around your neighborhood, see if there is anything that is suspicious, and report that as soon as you can, obviously to law enforcement, but also if you can. I just posted this article on Twitter. I want you to bookmark it, and if you actually can corroborate a threat, you see something suspicious, go ahead and post it up there so everybody else can share it across the country and every church can share it across the country. All right, and that brings us now to the globalist front.
The future is built by us. We have the means to make progress on the global agenda.
So part of the concern about AI is, where is it headed? Is it going to take over our life? And an article on Technocracy News raises a good question. Texas needs the equivalent of 30 nuclear reactors by 2030, 5 years, to power AI data centers. So suddenly nuclear power is back on the table because they need the energy to do that. I think that there might be something else cooking by the globalists. And I'm going to get to that under the national front, and that is to try to destabilize economies across the world and try to drag us into a war. But before we get there, the China front. South Korea and Air Force accidentally dropped a bomb on homes, injuring 15 on March 6th. The South Korean military drill went awry when a 500-pound Mark 82 bomb was dropped in a civilian area, injuring 7 people. And one of these says 15, and damaging homes and a church. The incident was part of exercises, and this is what we're going to see happen in the South Pacific. As exercises ramp up, the likelihood of these accidents also ramps up. So there's a prayer point for everybody out there. Also, a U.S. law expert said treat China's gray zone tactics as war. James Kraska, the chairman of the U.S. Naval War College, is advising Japan and allies to treat China's gray zone tactics as acts of war, arguing that gray zone is a false concept created by the ICJ. Yes, it is a false concept to get everybody to think that things are okay or that we can tolerate it, when in fact, unrestricted warfare is what the Chinese are pursuing. Today, the FBI released a public service announcement highlighting the Chinese government weaponization of InfoSec companies to hack computer networks worldwide and target groups deemed a threat to the Chinese Communist Party. Finally, we're talking about foreign adversaries with the FBI. Praise the Lord. Also, a fire broke out at the Manshan nuclear plant in southern Taiwan. Now, just very clearly, if you don't know anything about nuclear power, this was a cooling tower, which is away from the plant. This really isn't a big danger, but could it be sabotage? I don't know. We're just going to go ahead and highlight it today. If incidents like this increase in the future, that likelihood may indeed be there. Singapore is to buy new submarines, infantry fighting vehicles, and maritime patrol aircraft. Singapore plans to procure these new submarines, and this is just, again, another country building up in the South China Sea. That brings us now to a very hectic Middle East front. The U.S. and Israel are sending a joint message to Iran by, once again, a show of power with the B-52 Stratofortresses that have been cruising over there multiple times in the last couple of weeks. Each one of these, just so, and I love this analysis, because each one of these, I don't think people understand it, carry 20 B-83 bombs unleashing 2,000 square kilometers of devastation in a single strike. That's just one bomber. For context, Tehran is only 730 square kilometers. Clearly a threat to Iran and all other proxies in the Middle East. Trump issues a death threat to Hamas if they don't turn over all hostages. He issued a final ultimatum to Hamas, demanding the immediate release of all living hostages and the bodies of those murdered. This warning comes after direct talks between the Trump administration and Hamas officials, and it comes on the heels of Trump visiting with hostages and hearing the horror stories of what they went through face to face. U.S. Treasury Secretary Bessent is saying that Iran's access to the global financial system will be shut down. Following that, quick on its heels, President Donald Trump's administration is considering a plan to stop and inspect Iranian oil tankers at sea under an international accord aimed at countering the spread of weapons of mass destruction. This is a very clear signal. There is a ramping up of the United States against Iran. Likewise, an Iranian top nuclear negotiator resigned as U.S. sanctions tightened. Mohammad Zarif, the former Iranian foreign minister who brokered the 2015 nuclear deal, resigned from the government under pressure from hardliners. So it looks like there is a polarization happening there, which is an indication that we are headed toward war in that area of the world as well. But that brings us to Syria. Civil war has now started in Syria. Dozens are dead in Syrian coastal towns after attacks by remnants of pro-Assad gangs. That's not really accurate. Not just pro-Assad gangs. These are pro-Assad military forces that had gone to ground, as we reported on Patriot Radio here months ago. They have been organizing, reorganizing, re-equipping, and now they're attacking. As you can see in this next article, massive reinforcements are being sent to Latakia's coastal region following tense clashes with these Syrian Arab army cells. Also, there is very clearly a Turkish incursion now near the city of Idlib in northern Syria, where the clashes with the Kurds are happening, and mosque loudspeakers in southern Syria are now calling for jihad and urging locals to confront the IDF while advising fighters to stay away from the coastal region. So what you're seeing here with these calls for jihad is now a civil war regarding the Druze faction of Syria. And I would lump the Christians in there too, since they are in that Druze area in southwest Syria. So that does look like full-blown civil war taking off. But again, it's not just these forces. You also have formerly ISIS-tied forces amidst the ongoing operations in the Latakia governorate and agglomeration of pro-Assad regime and Iranian-backed insurgents groups are now calling itself the Military Council for the Liberation of Syria. They're also reportedly led by this guy who is a former commander of the now-defunct Syrian Army's 4th Division. These are the units that went to ground. This is who we had talked about here a couple of months ago. So what you're seeing happen now is the Iranians are trying to get ground back right near where the Russian bases were in Latakia. You have in that area, so on the Mediterranean, then up in northern Syria with the Kurds, and then down in southwest Syria with the Druze. That, by definition, is a civil war that has started. Trump is not lying when he says, I'm sending Israel everything it needs to finish the job. Weapons have been pouring into Israel in the last few days and weeks by Air and Sea. And yes, that's exactly happening because Israel is about to go back to war with Hamas. Also, on a somewhat good news front, Trump's special envoy for the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, confirms that the U.S. and Ukraine will meet in Saudi Arabia next week to start peace negotiations. The idea is to get down a framework for a peace agreement and an initial ceasefire as well. Immediately following that announcement, Trump said, quote, I will be going to Saudi Arabia, and Zelensky will be visiting Saudi Arabia next Monday to meet with the Crown Prince. So it's interesting that both leaders are going to be in the same place at the same time. Lastly, the Houthis, the wild-eyed Houthis in Yemen, said, quote, make it a world war. We don't care. We don't care. We don't care. Make it a major war. Thousands chanting that. And in fact, well, they may get their wish. We come back from the break. The Russia front and a lot more happening on the national front regarding the JFK files and Trump's assassination attempt files as well.
Attention business owners and entrepreneurs, Patriottv is launching a brand new TV series showcasing American-made products, and your business could be featured. Whether you sell your products online on Etsy or Shopify and dream of reaching millions of viewers on smart TVs like Samsung, Sony, TCL, and LG, or apps like Roku, Android, and Apple TV, this is your chance. We're searching for U.S.-based businesses offering all types of products and services proudly made in the USA. If you've ever wanted to showcase your products on TV like QVC or the Home Shopping Network, now's your opportunity. Support our American economy, grow your business, and be seen by loyal Patriot viewers across the country. Know someone with a business or have a business yourself? Don't miss out. Contact us at supportingpatriots.com today. Be a guest on this new exciting TV series. Let's put your American-made products in the spotlight.
The new Supporting Patriots show on Patriot TV spotlights great Patriot-owned companies and introduces them to Patriot consumers, encouraging them to buy American-made. If you're an America-loving patriot that owns and operates his or her own business, and you have Made in America products or services, you're the perfect candidate to be interviewed on the Supporting Patriots show. If you'd like to be considered for an interview, email us at supportingpatriots@patriot.tv.
And we're back with the Russia front. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov stated earlier today that French President Macron's call for expanding France's nuclear deterrent, including other countries in Europe, is a threat towards Russia. Lavrov also reiterated Russia's opposition towards NATO troops being used to enforce a ceasefire in Ukraine. Very clearly, the French president was talking as if they were going to send troops into Ukraine. Immediately following that, Giorgia Meloni proposed extending NATO's Article 5 to Ukraine without giving it NATO memberships to guarantee stable, lasting, and effective security. Right on the heels of that, the German foreign minister gave an impassioned speech to prepare Germans for war with Russia. Germany urges European nations to start mobilizing now and not wait for the formation of the incoming government in Germany under Chancellor Merz. Then Germany unveiled a $1.3 trillion spending pledge heavy on defense. $535 billion infrastructure pledge as well. The spending package aimed at stimulating economic growth and addressing these other infrastructure needs is really clearly a sign they are preparing for war tangibly. Now, let me get this straight. Germany, Italy, and France, compromised France, want to march troops toward Russia. Where have I heard that before? But wait, Italy said they weren't going to send troops. But then she said that about Article 5 in NATO. Where have we heard this before? It does sound like they are trying to drag the United States and the rest of the world into a world war, and that Ukraine was, in fact, supposed to be a trigger for World War III, as we've been talking about on this show for a very long time. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the conflict in Ukraine was a proxy war between two nuclear powers. And he said that the conflict seems to be at a pivotal point. It's either the start of a process that ends peace or a process of further expansion of the war. And I could not agree more based on some of these recent comments. Also, Ukrainian forces are retaking more and more villages around Pokrovsk. Russian channels report problems in manpower and Russian glide bombs being jammed. Also, and again, not very well reported, Russian storehouses have been depleted of their former post-World War II stocks. That's why they're ramping their economy up for new tanks and weapons. It's also why Slovakia and Hungary have said they will not allow the transit of European troops through their territory to enter Ukraine. Clearly, Putin wants this divide in Europe. Trump understands this, why he's trying to bring peace. Some people on the left just don't seem to understand that, or maybe that's what the plan has been all along, that they do, in fact, want that war, just as Elizabeth Warren seemed to indicate the other night in Congress. Trump administration is reportedly preparing to revoke the temporary legal status of upwards of 240,000 Ukrainian refugees. This is under the U4U program, it looks like. So for all of those under that program right now, you want to probably check out that article. Poland's PM Donald Tusk says that Europe must enter into an arms race with Russia and win it. And Trump turned around and said this: the United States will not defend NATO countries if they do not pay their fair share. That brings us to the national front. Over $1.1 trillion in value was lost from the U.S. stock market today. President Trump turned around and said the globalists are behind the stock market sell-off. This is where we're going to start to see the globalists flex muscle to create chaos. Again, very likely before a world war. So we're watching this very, very closely. And you should be paying attention as well. How will you preserve wealth through a wartime scenario? Gold and silver may be an option. Other options are out there, obviously, but the bottom line is we all need to get our financial houses in order. The company Epirus has developed Leonidas, a direct energy weapon firing EMP beams at drone swarms. This is a massive improvement technologically. Instead of having the mindset of a one-to-one engagement, it is now having the mindset of taking on entire drone swarms. This is a game changer for modern warfare. Representative Anna Paulina Luna is referring all four mayors at today's hearing for criminal prosecution, Eric Adams, Mike Johnston, Brandon Johnson, and Michelle Wu, saying, quote, "You are in direct violation of 8 U.S.C. Code 1324. And so she is criminally referring them to the DOJ for investigation. Pete Sessions, representative, introduced the Make Elections Secure Act, which would eliminate voting machines and ensure hand-marked paper ballots, severely restricting mail-in voting as well. And it's about time. While I was in the legislature, I would introduce in-person voting every single cycle that I could, because ultimately, mail-in voting allows for the most fraud. As a matter of fact, that's why in Iraq, when we were there, they didn't do mail-in voting. They did in-person voting with a big purple finger. President Trump plans to freeze the IRS for 90 days to find fraud, in addition to firing 45,000 IRS agents. Can I get it? Hallelujah and amen. President Trump also signed an executive order suspending the security clearances for employees at Perkins Coie, which played a key role in the Russia hoax. He's going to continue doing this, and there does need to be security clearance reform dramatically and better vetting just all across the board. The SBA will relocate our regional offices out of sanctuary cities and implement new citizenship verifications for loans to ensure zero taxpayer dollars go to support illegal aliens. The SBA is putting American citizens and small businesses first. That's a good announcement today. Also, President Trump is announcing the delay until April 2nd of the imposition of tariffs on Mexico, and it is reported as well that that will likely extend to Mexico soon. Trump says he wants to release the report on his 2 attempted assassins in the coming days. He had 6 cell phones, and a couple of them had some strange markings on them. So yeah, I want to find out, end quote. I wonder if those strange markings were Cyrillic or Arabic. Also, all declassified JFK documents will be housed at the link below with the National Archives. So one of the interesting things about this is that the last time the JFK files were released, an interesting report came up. Not many people I know talked about it, but I want to show it to you right now. It was a report from 1955 that was put together and given to the CIA. It was classified, thrown into the JFK files, although it didn't have anything to do with the JFK files. And it was a report that included a meeting and a picture, if we could scroll down to that, of Adolf Hitler in Colombia in 1954 with the mayor of Tunga. That's fascinating. I wonder what else is going to come out when the JFK files are released, or maybe nothing. Trump also released a statement telling the mayor of Washington, D.C. to clean up the homeless encampments in the city, implying that if the mayor didn't do that, he probably would. Also, new research from the University of Texas shows that all the justifications for mutilating children were lies. They analyzed more than 100,000 patients with gender dysphoria and looked at the outcomes. Depression, anxiety, suicidal feelings, and drug abuse were all significantly higher for those who received surgery compared to those who didn't. Sanity being restored to science. Amen. Also, Mike Lee, Senator Mike Lee, and Representative Thomas Massie, and officially introducing the bills to audit, dismantle, and end the Federal Reserve. And lastly, the CIA has begun a purge of employees as they get summoned to an off-site location to surrender badges. The Daily Mail reports the CIA also being cleaned up under the new Trump administration. And that is the briefing. Remember, the antidote to dependency and socialism is to be a God-fearing, self-reliant, freedom-loving American. Make sure to take the clip of the alert to churches across the United States. Get that out to your pastors and security teams. When we come back from the break, Selwyn Duke.
Throughout history, the spirit of patriotism has prevailed. The battles may have changed, but the values remain the same. Today, in 2024, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. For more than 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Because this year is not just any year, it's the most important year since our nation's founding. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile.
And we're back. We're going to talk quickly before we bring Selwyn Duke on about the immigration issue and the border. As we mobilize troops from Fort Carson to go down to the border with the Stryker Brigade and secure the border, the lowest numbers that have come across in history are being reported. But that's something that misses a key point, that while the border was open, there were terror cells that infiltrated the United States of America. Unit 910 from Iran, Muslim Brotherhood Special Section. The idea that China didn't come across the border is absolutely ludicrous. Of course they did. They have been working with American collaborators, not just cartels, but American collaborators who are on the left. So as we come into this next 90 days, it is really important for all of us to understand that in the lead up to May Day, May 1st, Easter season, end of Ramadan, that the likelihood of something happening here, the likelihood of an October 7th style attack across the United States on very soft targets becomes higher. This is not fear. This is objective analysis. So that the antidote to that is well-armed Americans that are trained, shoot straight, know the law in their state. That's the solution to this. In fact, it's always been the solution to a foreign adversary trying to do something like this, widespread terror attacks in the United States of America, trying to invade the United States. This is the biggest hedge. President Kennedy understood this. And he wanted decentralized civil defense in the United States of America to be that bigger hedge. This is why there were armories in virtually every major city in the United States, why the National Guard was in control of those armories. So in the case of any kind of invasion, any kind of attempt at terrorism in the U.S., there would be a very quick and well-armed response. So it wouldn't be just people with their everyday carry. There would be backup. There would be the cavalry riding in. So JFK wanted this decentralization of civil defense in the United States. Here's the other interesting piece, and I want to speak directly to churches right now. There are many churches who say, we don't need that stuff. God protects us. Tell that to the Orthodox Church. Tell that to the Catholic Church. Tell that to the Protestant Church in places like Ukraine and Syria. Because in those places, they would literally form their own security teams to defend their villages and their churches from Islamic aggression, from ISIS coming in and raping and killing all of their women and children. What we saw happen in Israel was a test run. What we saw happen in Israel was a precursor to what they want to do on a broader scale. You're only talking a few thousand Palestinians that came across the border that day. You're only talking about a few thousand people that wreaked havoc, murdered, kidnapped, raped, slaughtered kids. Let's be aware that the world is not a friendly place. And we've enjoyed a luxury here in the United States of America with oceans for buffers. But as was said by the Ukrainian president recently, that it was coming to us. I think that was a warning from the globalists. The globalists have underestimated the United States of America and have underestimated the patriots and Christians who are willing to defend her with their last breath. Attempt by unelected judges here in the United States to override President Trump. The United States Supreme Court the other day unfortunately ruled in favor of forcing the Trump administration to pay out almost $1.9 billion in USAID money. A district court judge has that kind of power? I don't think that was ever contemplated with a restraining order, ever contemplated by the founding fathers that they could make President of the United States pay out. The proper vehicle for making a government official to do something is called a writ of mandamus, not a temporary restraining order. More importantly than that, though, can a district court judge stop the President of the United States from doing what he is vested to do in Article 2? That all power is vested with the President of the United States? Or does the weird non-governmental organization that gets money from the government system, does that really override? The answer is no, it can't. Otherwise, corruption would run rampant. And Justice Alito rightly excoriated the other justices, including Amy Coney Barrett and Justice Roberts, for saying that there is somehow a district court judge can be the president by telling him to pay these things. The lines are becoming blurred. So that brings us to this idea of judicial supremacy. The judiciary was supposed to be the weakest branch of government. In fact, originally in the Washington State Constitution, but also the talk among the founding fathers, was that the judicial branch only had jurisdiction over the opinions that came before it. In other words, they could not bind future cases based on the one case. They only had the authority, the jurisdiction over that case, and the ruling was only binding on that case. I think it was Article 5, like Section 18 or 20 here in the Washington State, the first Washington State Constitution. 1878. That Constitution says something very similar, that the judges could only rule on the cases before them. So what we're seeing right now is judicial activism. Now, the Congress has the power under Article 3 to rein in the judiciary and to take certain jurisdictions off of their plate. I think it's time that we revisit that, and that there is a check and balance in the system, and that these out-of-control judges do need to be checked. They don't have the authority to do these things that they're trying to do. And so will Trump actually abide by the ruling, or will he ignore it? So I'm going to go through a couple of these examples. One opinion disallowed DOJ from scrutinizing Treasury Department data. Does the President of the United States not have the authority to look at the data for every single department that is vested in one executive? Absurd. Another opinion stated that the Trump administration must unfreeze funding on grants and loans. What if we were at war? Are you saying that the president couldn't do that? Or the president couldn't do that if he saw corruption? Because, again, the executive power is vested in one man, not a judge. A different opinion put a freeze on Trump's buyout offer for federal employees. So now the president of the United States can't negotiate. Now, that one I think was overturned, but can't negotiate contracts with his own employees because the executive power is vested in one man, not a judge. A different opinion ordered the administration to restore the sexual devolutionary government web pages the Trump team had taken down. So now the president can't control the web pages of his executive branch because all the power of the executive branch is invested in one person, not a judge. This creates a situation that Nayib Bukele brought up, where the same thing happened in El Salvador, that the Marxists, the leftists got so entrenched in the judiciary. This has also happened in Poland, by the way, that they never decommunized the judiciary in Poland. So you have members of the Communist Party that are still in power in Poland in places. This is critical to understand that in El Salvador, they had to go and impeach judges. Now, we have two vehicles. We can limit their jurisdiction by the Congress. We can also impeach them. Limiting jurisdiction is probably the easier road, with a majority in the House and a majority in the Senate. So they had to impeach judges in El Salvador and clean out the judiciary. Once they did that, they were able to see the entire agenda of rooting out corruption come to fruition. So Nayib Bukele understands this, and I think Trump is beginning to understand this as well, that there is rot in the judiciary, that some of the corruption that needs to be rooted out is not just in USAID, is not just in the Treasury Department, is not just in the Defense Department, not just in the intelligence community, not just in the Department of Agriculture, but is also in the judiciary. Now, that may be offensive to some people, but it shouldn't be. Human beings are human beings, and there needs to be oversight. There is a check and balance in our system for a reason. So why don't we begin to use it? Why does the executive not begin to use it? Why does President Trump have to be the punching bag for out-of-control judges? So I want to see if I can find this really quick with Alito. See if there's that quote from Justice Alito. Well, I'll just summarize it. He said that the judge, who may lack jurisdiction anyway over the situation with USAID, also doesn't likely have the power to stop a president exercising presidential authority. We, the people, need to back President Trump, since we, the people, are the government of the United States of America, and that unelected judges are not the arbiter, the sole arbiter of what is or what is not constitutional. The Founding Fathers never believed such a heresy. Otherwise, why are officials supposed to take an oath of office to the Constitution? If you have to uphold it, if your duty is to uphold the Constitution of the United States, that presupposes you have to examine things to make sure you're actually upholding the Constitution. So the Supreme Court, all the several appellate courts, the district courts, they can't be the sole arbiter of what is or what is not constitutional. That's why Andrew Jackson, President of the United States, said, now let them come enforce it. So we are now at a very critical crossroads regarding the judiciary in the United States. And the debate needs to be had publicly, no question. But where there's this clear overreach, the people need to back the rooting out of corruption and not the institutionalization of it. We're trying to see if we can get Selwyn Duke back on, if that's possible. But I'm going to shift next to immigration. The U.S. population is only increasing because of immigration. So very likely with some of the crackdown that we're seeing right now, that could drop. Our population is almost 345 million people. So the key point, I think, behind this is, if we do crack down on immigration, are we going to actually incentivize people having families and giving birth? I really believe in the very short summary that healing the family will heal the nation. Two-parent families are always the best place to raise children. But are parents really incentivized to have more children? Well, that gets back to the economic situation. Are we going to get rid of the income tax, and would that not result in a lot more births? Yes, one of the unintended consequences, or in this case, intended consequences, of rolling back government overreach, rolling back the taking of our tax money to be used for things that we don't believe in, like transgender mice, and that is true. You can go read the report verbatim. Somebody did a great post on it earlier showing the exact quotes. What if we actually kept our wealth and then invested it where we wanted to, like in our family? What if our family became the source of stability for the country? What if our family helped to grow the country and bring even more prosperity to the United States? What if our family is what the key is to healing the United States and maybe healing the world? What if we became that light on a hill again? What if the United States, instead of relying on other countries' best and brightest, we actually started creating our own in greater numbers than we already are? What if? What if indeed? I think at this point, we're going to go to the break. And hopefully when we come back, we'll have Selwyn Duke. But if we don't, I want to ask this very serious question. What side do you land on? More prosperity? More family? Family as the key to healing the nation, or something else?
American business owners, you understand the power of TV. If you have a product that you want to sell to millions of like-minded Americans who value quality, hard work, and supporting the red, white, and blue, Supporting Patriots is the perfect place. If you're ready to bring your product to a patriotic audience eager to buy American, then contact us today at SupportingPatriots.com and secure your spot on Supporting Patriots. Let's build a stronger economy. When we buy American, we support our future.
I couldn't give anything a higher endorsement.
I would be remiss had I not include Cardio Miracle on my very short list of secrets.
It's the real deal. It's a real product. It's not another supplement.
I'm operating about 6 to 8 hours, and I've noticed that being on this Cardio Miracle has made a huge difference.
Since I started taking Cardio Miracle, about 8 months into it, the benefits have been fantastic.
You know, if I get hungry, then I just have a Cardio Miracle.
Not only is it safe, but it's necessary to take Cardio Miracle to stay well.
This let me sleep. It's showing up more energy, more get up and go, and it's all because of what this company does.
For me as a doctor, Cardio Miracle is a staple.
Cardio Miracle to me is hope in a glass.
To try Cardio Miracle for yourself and get a special fan discount, go to the host page right now and click the link for Cardio Miracle.
And we're back. So I hope that was very thought-provoking for everybody. That are we on the side of growing? Are we on the side of not just increasing our slice of the pie, but actually increasing the size of the pie? I really believe that family, all of these Malthusians who said, oh, there's too many humans, there's not going to be enough food. It has never been true. Oh, there's not going to be enough water. Never been true. Oh, the planet is going to die. Never been true. The fact is that God made human beings, and he made human beings and children in particular to be a blessing. So why don't we increase the blessing? That brings us to some breaking news right now. 27 EU members stated today approval for the Rearm Europe program that would add 800 billion in euros to Europe's defense spending. It does, in fact, look like Europe is on the road to war. Also, President Trump just signed an executive order, just signed an executive order officially establishing the strategic Bitcoin reserve and U.S. digital asset stockpile that includes XRP. Those are going to shoot through the roof, I am absolutely certain. And as just a side note, Fort Knox, buy gold before they audit Fort Knox, right? Isn't that the the prevailing wisdom? Because if they audit Fort Knox and they find nothing there, very likely gold prices will go through the roof. So with that, it looks like we do finally have our guest today, Selwyn Duke, selwynduke.com. I'm glad we could work through the technical stuff and get you on, Selwyn. Great to see you.
Same here, Matt. Yeah, I don't know what happened, but modern technology, it'll do what it'll do. Like Nancy Pelosi said, people will do what they do, right? Technology
That's right.
too.
So we got about 4 minutes, unfortunately, but let's go straight to kind of the big thing right now. That is, Europe looks like it's trying to drag the United States into World War III. What are your thoughts on that? Where do we go?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely crazy. And I think that Trump should tell NATO, tell the European powers through back channels that if they want to really keep on poking the Russian bear, then we're going to have to consider leaving NATO. Certainly, we don't want to be pulled into World War III over Ukraine, a country that The Guardian, the liberal paper, said before Putin invaded was the most corrupt country in Europe. There's only so much you can do. And our founding fathers, Matt, warned us against entangling alliances and getting involved in European wars. Now, I know it was a different time. I get that the world is a smaller place, but nonetheless, you have to be prudent. And what comes into play here, this is not just might makes right. What comes into play is just war doctrine. And two of the criteria necessary for a war to be just is that there must be a reasonable chance of success, and the proposed action must do more good than harm. This simply does not qualify. What we should be doing is what Trump is trying to do. We should be de-escalating. We have to talk to both sides like he's doing. And quite frankly, I mean, that's all you can do. Putin has 6,000 nuclear weapons. I mean, we're not dealing with Iraq here or Panama or Grenada. This is big time.
It is. So that shifts us to Trump is trying to do the right thing. He has been cracking down. He's been removing the funding from USAID. Then all of a sudden, a district court is trying to say, no, you must pay out $1.9 billion after he'd frozen it. Judicial supremacy. I tried to talk about it before you came on, just kind of set it up. This idea of judicial supremacy and judges now becoming the president of the United States is absurd. What say you?
Yeah, well, this is something that I've been writing about for at least 15 years. This greatly predates Trump's ascendancy. I mean, the bottom line is that Thomas Jefferson said that if the judicial supremacy theory was valid, then indeed is our Constitution a felo de se. That's Latin. That means an act of suicide. And what he was saying, in essence, is that if we have that standard, we will be subjected to a judicial oligarchy. And that is what has come to pass. There's no question about it. We're supposed to be a government of the people and by the people and for the people, as Lincoln put it. We are not that. If 5 lawyers in black robes can overrule the will of the people. And I want to point out something. This is very important to understand. Judicial supremacy is not in the Constitution at all. This is a power, an extra constitutional power that was declared for the courts by the courts themselves, most notably in the 1803 Marbury v. Madison decision. So, I mean, I suppose it's a great con if you can pull it off. I'm Selwyn Duke. I'll declare myself king of the country and you have to obey me. But in essence, that's what's happened. So I think we need to revisit this. The courts really now have an outsized power. And it's not a good thing. And like I said, I've been writing about this for 15 years. So I'm not just saying it because Trump is in office and he is to some extent being thwarted by the courts.
So what should he do about it? I mean, what's the solution here?
Well, as I put it in my article that I wrote about this a while back, I don't know if you want to go and defy the courts right now. I don't know if it's wise politically at this juncture because he's trying to get a lot done and really he's acting in a revolutionary fashion and that's good. So maybe he should just work through the system right now and he's going to win most of these cases as they ascend up towards the Supreme Court. But at some point, I really think we need to revisit this unconstitutional notion of judicial supremacy. Because if you have judges acting like this, basically arrogating to themselves the legislative power to some degree because they can strike down a law, the executive power to some degree because they can say to the chief executive, well, you must perform this action or you cannot perform that action. And then they have their own judicial power. Then you have what the father of the Constitution, James Madison, said was the very definition of tyranny: the executive, legislative, and judicial powers all in the hands of the same entity.
I think Congress needs to actually get off of their chairs and do something about this through Article 3. I mean, limiting jurisdiction would be one quick way this could be solved.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as I said in my article, and I think you understand this, and when you were in office, I'm sure you were an exception. Tom Tancredo was too, I believe. But basically, politicians like it when courts make the tough decisions, because then they don't have to go and make them themselves and alienate part of the electorate. So if they can say, well, hey, we fought the good fight, but the courts have ruled, that's it. They can wash their hands of the whole thing and go on to the next issue. But it's not the way our system is supposed to work. Congress, the House, which is closest to the people, that's why its members run for re-election every 2 years, is supposed to have the most power. It's not the judiciary that's supposed to have the most power of the three branches.
That's exactly right. Selwyn Duke, thanks for joining me on a short segment here at Patriot Radio. Blessings to you. Look forward to having you on soon again.
Thank you. God bless. God bless you and your audience.
SelwynDuke.com. So what can you do? Well, educate your friends and family. Have the conversation with them about judicial supremacy. The idea that judges can't run roughshod, that judges need to abide by the Constitution as well, and that the president, the Congress, and judges are all bound to defend and uphold the Constitution of the United States, which means they're all bound to analyze what is and what is not constitutional, and that the judicial branch is not the sole arbiter of what is or what is not constitutional. And it would do us all good if we remember that. This is Matt Shea. Thank you so much for joining me on Patriot Radio today. May God bless all of you. He is making this generation the greatest one. So keep up the fight.